Have you ever kept walking, even though you had no idea what you were looking for? Not because someone told you to. Not because you had a destination. But because something inside you quietly whispered, "Keep going." Lumo had spent days following that feeling. There was no map in his little satchel. No signs. No footprints. Only an endless sea of tall grass stretching farther than the eye could see. The wind was the only thing that spoke. It bent the grass into slow waves, as if the earth itself was breathing. Sometimes Lumo would stop, not because he was tired, but because silence has a strange way of making you listen. He looked around. Nothing. Just the horizon. An open sky. And a world so empty that it almost felt unfinished. Most travelers would have turned back long ago. But Lumo had learned something. Not every journey begins with knowing where you're going. Sometimes the path reveals itself only to those who continue walking. Far away, something interrupted the perfect line of the horizon. At first, it looked like nothing more than a tiny shadow. Lumo stopped and stared for a long moment. It was a city, standing completely alone in the middle of nowhere. No smoke rose into the sky. No voices echoed through the air. No birds circled above it. From this distance, it looked less like a place where people lived and more like a memory someone had forgotten. Curiosity is a strange thing. The farther something is, the more your imagination tries to reach it. Some places don't call everyone. They only wait for those willing to keep walking. Lumo stepped into the city expecting to find answers. Instead, he found silence. The streets were frozen in time, as if the city had taken one final breath and never exhaled again. Every window was dark. Every door remained closed. Not a single voice echoed between the old stone walls. It didn't feel abandoned in the ordinary sense. It felt forgotten. Nature had quietly begun reclaiming what people had left behind. Vines climbed the walls without anyone stopping them. Grass pushed through cracks in the stone streets. Moss softened the edges of stairways that no one had climbed for years. Lumo walked slowly, looking from one building to another. Every corner felt like it was hiding a story. A broken sign still hung above an empty shop. The strange thing was that it felt like someone had only just left, as if the city had been waiting. For the first time since entering the city, Lumo stopped. Something caught his eye out of the corner of his eye. A bright yellow glow, no one knew what it was. At first, he wasn't sure if he'd actually seen it. Everything had been shrouded in silence and darkness for so long that even the slightest change seemed impossible. But there it was. In the distance, beyond the empty street, a warm glow lay quietly in the distance. It was powerful, but not bright enough to illuminate the city. Lumo froze for a moment, unable to look away. In a place where every window was dark and every corner succumbed to time, even the smallest light seemed strangely alive. The closer he got, the more incredible it seemed. The buildings were still abandoned. The streets were still empty. Nothing else had changed. And yet, that single light continued to burn, as if it had never been forgotten. Curiosity drew him forward. Not because he expected answers, but because hope often begins with something so insignificant that most people pass by. It was just an old lantern, standing alone in the middle of an abandoned square, quietly clinging to the last ray of light remaining in the city. Lumo slowly walked closer. The lantern didn't flicker, and it wasn't fighting the darkness. It simply glowed, as if it had been waiting for someone for a very long time. Lumo stopped beside it and looked around. The entire city was covered in darkness. Dark windows, empty streets, closed doors. Not a single other light. This old lantern was the only source of light in the whole city. Lumo carefully examined the glass, the base, and the old metal frame. It seemed that time had touched everything around it, except the flame itself. It didn't seem to depend on oil or a wick, it simply kept burning. Lumo stood there for a long time, trying to understand its secret. But some things cannot be explained, they can only be accepted. He continued walking through the city. Now he was no longer searching for the city itself. He was searching for the traces of the people who had once lived there. The paint had long faded from the old benches. Worn-out signs gently swayed in the wind. Forgotten belongings lay scattered through the narrow streets. Once, people had laughed here, talked to one another, and walked home late in the evening. Every single one of them had passed this very lantern. It had lit their way. It had been important to everyone. But one day, the city disappeared. Lumo wandered farther until he noticed a long wooden stick lying beside the remains of an old wooden stall. Next to it was a broken hand lantern. Its glass was cracked, its metal was covered with rust, and there had been no light inside for a very long time. Lumo carefully picked up both items. He brushed away the dust, straightened the bent parts, and attached the lantern to the stick. Now he could carry it with him. It looked old and worn, but it was whole again. Lumo returned to the old street lantern. For a few seconds, he silently looked at the flame. Then he slowly held out his own lantern. A small flame gently passed into it. The old lantern did not become any dimmer. It had lost nothing. It had simply shared its light. From that moment on, Lumo had a lantern of his own. It wasn't new. But now he could do more than simply light his own path. One day, he could light the way for someone else. A lantern can illuminate a road. But sometimes it first illuminates the one who carries it. Lumo sat quietly on an old bench under a street lamp. In the silence preceding dawn, not just light is born, but the very essence of existence. We stand on the threshold of eternity, where every moment is not just the ticking of a clock, but the pulsation of life itself. Look more closely. The universe is hidden within this fragile transparency. Nature does not speak loudly, it whispers truths accessible only to those who know how to listen to the silence. It is a dance of matter and spirit, where chaos takes shape, and shape takes meaning. We are particles of this great mechanism, guided by the invisible thread of fate. In the bustle of everyday life, we often forget the grandeur of the moment, that every decision is a rupture in the fabric of reality, creating a new universe of possibilities. And as the day draws to a close, we understand. Beauty is not in perfection, but in the very fact of being. In this eternal movement, in this endless search for truth. Light doesn't necessarily have to be born, sometimes it only needs someone willing to carry it. From now on, Lumo himself carries something bright within himself. The empty city was still silent, but somehow it no longer seemed abandoned and frightening. The little hero opened his bag and pulled out a notebook and pencil. These notebooks and pencils were important to him. Lumo wrote only 2 sentences on a new page. Some lights don't fade. They simply wait for a new path. He closed the notebook, picked up the flashlight, and continued walking into the darkness.